James is 17 years old and has been devoid of emotion since childhood, but he meets Alyssa, who evokes strange feelings in him. He wants to kill her, but instead falls in love and doesn't know how to proceed. From a young age, James understood that he lacked a sense of humor. When James's father joked, the boy wanted to hit him in the face. At the age of 9, James plunged his hand into boiling oil just to feel something. At 15, James buried a cat in the forest, after which he killed several more animals. But now, he needs a new victim, and it seems he has found one. Alyssa lives with her mother and stepfather. Tony hates Alyssa and constantly provokes conflicts with her. Alyssa's mother loves her younger siblings more than her daughter. Alyssa loves only her biological father, who left them in her childhood, but he sends her cards every year on her birthday. Alyssa has a difficult character. She comes to school and, during lunch, receives a message on her phone from a girl sitting next to her. Alyssa smashes her phone. She notices James and approaches him to introduce herself. At that moment, James realizes he wants to kill her.
I thought she could be interesting to kill.
They go for a walk, and Alyssa kisses James, but he feels absolutely nothing. He has to do everything for his goal. Alyssa says she broke her phone and can't call anyone. James says he doesn't have a phone either. James invites Alyssa on a date. The couple goes to a cafe, and Alyssa orders pancakes, speaking very uncouthly. Alyssa has a complex character. She tells James that everyone around is too boring and unexpectedly suggests going to James's house. Alyssa asks James about his mother. James says she left when he was little. James's father comes home, and he is very happy to see Alyssa as a guest. He thought James was gay, but now he sees that's not the case. Alyssa asks James if he's ever licked anyone before. James responds positively. Alyssa suggests they do it tomorrow at his place at 11. He was ready for the meeting an hour early. He prepared a knife and waited for Alyssa to arrive. But at that time, Alyssa was helping her mom. Tony approaches Alyssa and asks her to leave the house for good, saying it would be better for everyone. Seeing her mom, Alyssa realizes Tony might be right. Alyssa goes to James's place and undresses. But James is contemplating the best moment to kill her. Alyssa proposes they run away from the city, stating there's nothing tying them there, and nobody needs them. James agrees and suggests taking his father's car. James takes the wheel, and they embark on their journey. While Alyssa revels in their newfound freedom, James can only think about how she'll scream when he draws his knife. Alyssa suggests they can now do whatever they want, with no one to stop them. After some amusement, Alyssa suggests they go eat. She orders a lot of food and devours it all. However, they soon realize they've spent all their money on entertainment. James doesn't know what to do, but he remembers that girls like bad boys, so he simply gets up and leaves without paying. They hit the road again, and Alyssa asks James to take off his shirt. This distraction leads to an accident. Alyssa finds it amusing, but James feels remorse for his father's car. In truth, Alyssa is also anxious, but she keeps it to herself. They try hitchhiking on another road, but only one man agrees to help them. He talks about his family and mentions wanting to buy a dog. This dog happens to be one of the most dangerous in the world and is destined for dogfighting. Alyssa immediately dislikes this man. The man brings them to a cafe to eat. He orders food and shows a photo of his children. Alyssa remarks that his child looks like a piglet and leaves. Alyssa doesn't understand why she's being so rude. Sometimes she just can't control herself and often regrets what she says. James goes to the restroom, and the man follows him. He stands next to James and looks at him strangely. Suddenly, he takes James's hand. James doesn't pull away.
Sometimes I just let things happen.
Alyssa enters the restroom to apologize and sees this. She asks what's going on. Alyssa thinks James likes guys, but he says it's not true. The man tries to leave, but Alyssa stops him and asks for his wallet, threatening to tell the police everything. They leave the place and decide to get a hotel room. They enter the room and lie on the bed. Alyssa feels sad and goes to the bathroom to cry. Meanwhile, James takes out the knife and thinks it's the perfect moment to do it. He hears Alyssa crying. James imagined this moment differently. He puts away the knife and waits for Alyssa. Alyssa comes out of the bathroom and goes to the phone to call her mom, but Tony answers. He says Alyssa doesn't need to come back because they're fine without her. She lies down on the bed and asks James to hug her. James's father decides to call the police. Alyssa wants to go to her father's place, but she's afraid he won't recognize her. Alyssa says they need to wait a little before going to her father's. They find a big house, and Alyssa decides to stay there briefly. The house has no security cameras or alarm systems. Alyssa simply breaks a window and enters. She finds alcohol and suggests James to drink. In the evening, they both get drunk, and Alyssa starts dancing. Alyssa asks James to close his eyes and feel the music. James relaxes and starts dancing. Alyssa kisses him and asks him to sit on the couch. She takes off his pants and gets to work, but James stops her because the photo of the homeowner is bothering him. Alyssa gets upset with James and leaves. At that moment, James feels something for the first time. He picks a flower from the yard and waits for Alyssa to return. Meanwhile, Alyssa meets a guy and invites him to her place. She brings him to the house and goes upstairs with him. James feels uncomfortable, but he just stays put. He remembers he wanted to kill Alyssa, but he'll have to wait a bit to do it. James decides to explore the house to execute his mission perfectly. In one of the drawers, James finds photos and a camcorder. He turns on the recording and sees that the homeowner is a criminal. Meanwhile, Alyssa asks the guy to undress, but she soon changes her mind and kicks him out. Alyssa feels bad for mistreating James and goes to sleep. James enters the room and lies on the floor. He came here to kill her, but he doesn't want to. At that moment, the homeowner enters the house and sees that someone is broken in. James hides under the bed. The man enters the bedroom and sees Alyssa on the bed. He closes the door and sits on the bed. He figures out that Alyssa has never had a man before. He starts touching her and leans over her, but James uses his knife to save Alyssa. The man falls to the floor and realizes his end has come. James says they need to call the police and explain it was self-defense, but Alyssa says the police won't believe them because they broke into his house. So they decide to remove all the evidence, but they can't lift the body. They decide to leave the body there and start cleaning up. They mop the floors, wipe away all fingerprints, and dispose of the trash. James hides the knife in the most obvious place. James goes upstairs to the bedroom and looks at the man's body. He reflects on achieving his goal, but imagined it differently. James doesn't feel joy or pleasure. He's scared of what he's done. Alyssa asks what he's doing. She thinks James is dangerous. James says that if he hadn't done it, the man would have killed her. He shows photos and videos of women who fell victim to this man. Alyssa comes up with a plan. They lay out the photos next to the body and leave. They burn their clothes and all the evidence and send them away. Alyssa says they need to change their appearance so the police won't find them. Alyssa has changed a lot after what happened. James notices she's afraid of him. She asks James where he got the knife. James says he always carries it with him. Alyssa doesn't like his answer. Meanwhile, the mother of the murdered man enters the house. She burns all the photos and calls the police. Investigators arrive at the crime scene. Detectives Noon and Darigo begin their investigation. Under the bed, they find documents belonging to this guy. He tells them how he met a girl named Alyssa, and she invited him home. He says there was also a young guy named James in the house. The police put out a search warrant for them. James and Alyssa come to the cafe, and James notices that Alyssa is afraid of him. He asks why she's acting this way. Alyssa says she constantly thinks about how James uses his knife. James tries to cheer Alyssa up, but she goes to the bathroom and runs away. James waits for her for another 30 minutes, but soon realizes Alyssa is gone. He doesn't know where to go and realizes that Alyssa was the only meaning in his life. James feels lonely. He approaches a group of guys and asks them to beat him up. James thought he was Alyssa's protector, but he was wrong.
I was never Alyssa's protector. She was mine.